And I wanted to use this as my launch, as my new foundation to create this new life coming out of what was a really horrible, horrible situation, which then led me to where I'm at today, which is standing on stage and talking about forgiveness and creating a documentary that can help other men and women, guiding people through the Grand Canyon on transformational retreats, and really going back into how I actually became a survivor in all of this.
Welcome to Empowerista, a show dedicated to helping you show up and be seen as an entrepreneur. I'm your host, Alex Wehrley, the CEO of Empowerista, an award-winning producer and national TV host, seen on platforms like Entrepreneur.com, Amazon Prime, and Business Rockstars. These are the tips and truths to amplify your influence and income. My guest today is Sara Schulting-Kranz, the owner of Live Boldly Coaching. As a multiple trauma survivor, Sara has turned her pain into a purposeful business, coaching men and women through their journey of healing and transformation. She's also a TedX speaker on forgiveness, retreat leader, and soon-to-be author of a Harper Horizon published book. Before we dive in, I wanted to let you know I'm currently booking clients for Confidently on Camera, a 12-week one-on-one coaching program with me, empowering you to plan, present, produce, promote, and publish your first social media video series to ultimately increase your influence and income online. If you're interested in learning more, apply for a free consultation at confidentlyoncamera.com to see if working together is a good fit. Thanks for joining me again.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yes, and since I chatted with you last, you have been up to a ton. You gave a TED Talk. Yes. You're writing a book. Mm-hmm. You just filmed a documentary. Wow, we're going to get into all of those juicy details. But for those who aren't familiar with your story, if we could start from the beginning, and if you could share what was the inspiration behind Live Boldly Coaching?
Yeah, so my story, I wanted to create a business where I had all of the pain and all of the things that I had lived through personally, and created something that could help other people in the world. And so I, 6 years ago, found out, 6 years ago Thanksgiving, actually it was 6 years ago Thanksgiving at the same time that we actually filmed the documentary in the Grand Canyon, which is really bizarre, right? I found out that my husband of 17 years had been living a double life, and he was having affairs with men and came out as gay. And I have 3 boys as well. And then what happened through my own process of healing is that it also triggered a lot of the pain from my past. I had been raped when I was 17 years old and ended up having a son out of that situation. And so it was my entire story, and it's very deep, and I'm giving you a very, nice, tightly wound version of it. But there was so much that came out of that. And, I'm from the Midwest. I'm from a very, very small town in Wisconsin.
Same area.
Same area as you. And so I really, I wanted to go back to the heartbeat of who I am as a woman. All this happened at the age of 40. And so I'm 46 today, and proudly so. And I wanted to use this as my launch, as my new foundation to create this new life coming out of what was a really horrible, horrible situation, which then led me to where I'm at today, which is standing on stage and talking about forgiveness and creating a documentary that can help other men and women, guiding people through the Grand Canyon on transformational retreats, and really going back into how I actually became a survivor in all of this. And using all of my survivor techniques and all of my tools to then share with others to do the same. So,
first of all, wow.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No.
I'm not sorry, because that's me.
Please do not
Never
say sorry.
apologize.
I say wow because your story and the pain and overcoming that pain obviously can't be summed up in the short time that we have now. If people want to hear about your story more in depth, I'd encourage them to go to our first interview that we had together, the first Hours interview, where we did go more in depth about what that journey was like. It's very powerful on so many different levels. Yeah. But I say wow because what you just summed up is you went from point A to point Z. You did a complete transformation of healing.
Yeah.
And it's really, really inspiring the way that you've turned your pain into a purposeful business. And that's where I want to pick up.
Yep.
I want to pick up
1000%.
with the fact that you were able to do this huge transformation in your life and therefore show others that it's possible too. And as you just heard Sara say, this is not just a little obstacle that she overcame. This is some major trauma that you overcame. So you're an inspiration to everyone that is possible.
Thank you.
So let's pick up at the time in your journey where you had gone through this trauma and you decided that you wanted to turn your pain into the purpose. What was the catalyst for that?
I tell everybody the catalyst for that was actually my kids. I have 3 boys. And all of a sudden, I'm thrown into being a single mom with 3 boys. And my boys are, I'm going to start crying, they are the heartbeat of who I am. And so going back to that place of, I wanted to provide for them. I really wanted to provide for them a house, right, with a mom and a dad and the white picket fence and all the things that we all look at. Like, that's what I wanted, and the little dog and all that stuff. It just exploded. And so then it was, well, how do I take what I have and create something that's a foundation for them that can also then allow them to step into their, to who they need to be in this world as leaders, because they all of a sudden were thrown into this whole different place, right, as well, where now who are they? And so that became the foundation. Truly, my kids became the foundation of this entire thing, quite frankly, and I now have my oldest who's traveling in Singapore. He's traveling around the world. And my middle one is going to USC to play water polo. And my youngest is this huge basketball player. And so I wanted to take my pain and create it into something not only for other people, but really they are the heartbeat of it all. And really how it started was because through this entire situation, when I found out, I took my paddleboard and I was like, okay, I got the Pacific Ocean, right? And so I went onto my paddleboard and I would paddle 4 miles offshore and I'd be with dolphins and whales and I would look into the eyes of them, literally, like look into the eye of a whale. And I know, no, this is true, like this is what happened. And they would just kind of turn and flip and look at me and they gave me this vision of this like look of like, you're okay, you're good. You got everything that you need within you. You are the heartbeat. You are the seed that needs to actually grow something so much bigger than what this situation is. And I would paddle with dolphins and I would go and, hike trails and I would summit peaks and I'd go into the Grand Canyon and that was my healing mechanism. Nature literally became my therapy. And so through that, and then also having 2 people, well, one in particular who said to me, you need to do something with this because your transformation is so different than anything I've ever witnessed before. And I realized literally when I was a few miles offshore, I had this vision of I need to do something with this. And what I want to do is I want to start with creating retreats in the Grand Canyon, which was a lot of, a lot of where my transformation happened was in that Grand Canyon because you had to go so deep into the canyon and then you go deep within yourself. And you do a lot of self-reflection and a lot of just healing work and meditating and really connecting with not only what's around you, but what's within you. And that's where all this happened. I literally looked at somebody when I was on the ocean with them and I said, I think this is what I want to do. And they were
it just kind of came to you?
Yeah, through the process, through my own healing process and being in nature and realizing what's going on with me as well. When you're out there, when you're like summiting peaks and you're doing all the things, and I don't just go into nature or like go summit a peak to just like bag a peak. Like I go into it with an intention of why am I here? Like what am I looking for? What is the reflection within myself that I'm actually, what is the healing piece that I'm looking for? I do that even today. Like there is not a day that goes by that I don't actually do like a true meditation or something within nature where I then go back into who I am. I have to because I've been through a lot, right? And so, through that process, I was like, this is what I want to do. And I continuously had these visions of like these hits, like this is what I think it's going to look like. And then all of a sudden, 6 years later, 5 years later, post that when I decided, we're actually filming the documentary in the Grand Canyon. And so it's just wild. It's like I kept having, and I think I was manifesting a lot of it myself as well, like really going into who I am, into my soul and my spirit, and really doing like having my business come from there. So I do an inward business kind of out. You know what I mean? Like inward out.
And I would imagine that nature is a major tool for you to help to connect with that inner part of you. It sounds like meditation. What are some of those tools that you would recommend for entrepreneurs watching and listening to connect with that inward part to have their business be an outward expression?
We just, actually, it's interesting. I'm leading a group in January into the Grand Canyon. There's 11 of us. And we had our first call last night over Zoom, and this was one of the conversations that we got into, because she said, my mind is continuously on this tape playing thing of like, you know, I need to be. And I said, you have to slow down. There is a very big, we as humans, especially with technology, are always in that doing state, where we're constantly thinking about that next thing. And our frontal lobe, that part of our brain, that frontal lobe of our brain that's decision making, it's constantly on. And so we're always like, okay, I got to do this, I got to do that, I got to post that, I got to get into Instagram, I got to throw something on Facebook, I've got to, you know, have my LinkedIn page updated. And when we're always in that next step, we don't go inward into the being place.
So just simply slowing down however it works for you.
Slow down. Like literally we have to slow down, and we have to put our technology away, and we have to connect with what is really important to us, which is for believe it or not, for 100% of us, because we are all nature, like we are all also animals walking this planet, that is our home state. That like we are, that whole natural expression comes from not in four walls, but outside. And so when we can actually take our shoes off or go outside and actually slow down, breathe the air, right? Connect with what's around us. That's where our greatest creativity, and that's where our hits are actually going to come from.
Yeah, and of course the other side of that coin is we do also have to take action.
Oh, so for sure.
If you could break down what that looked like for you once you were getting these hits, this vision of this is what I want to do, this is how I feel like it's going to look. What were some of those first action steps that you took to make it a reality?
So it's interesting because where I come from, you know, I'm an art teacher by trade. That's where I went to school and became an art teacher. And so I'm a very, very creative person, but I didn't have any idea about business. And so I asked a lot of questions from people around me who are in business. And I also did go on the internet, and I was like, okay, how do I do this? Like, what are the things? LegalZoom. Okay. It's like so simple, right? Like just to take that first step forward into, well, how do I create a business? Like we have everything at our fingertips with Google. And so you literally just have to go onto Google and ask that question.
Right.
And it's there. And then what I did was started believing deeply in me. So that was that whole courageous step of, if she's doing a podcast, why can't I? And if they're writing a book, why can't I? And I had a lot of people with my book, for example, that said to me, you're going to write a book? Like, just self-publish, or just do this, or just do that. And I was like, I really want an agent. I want an agent, and I want to go, like, I want it to go big, and I want it to be in a big publishing house. And I had so many people that were saying to me, but like, just do it this way. And I really listened to who I am, into that heartbeat of who I am, again, back to that, and just took the courageous step forward and said, you know what? No, like, I want to get an agent in New York City. And I had Gabby Bernstein's book sitting right next to me when I was writing my book proposal. And I kept thinking, if she's done, she had to start somewhere. And which was on her bed. I remember reading that. Like, she sat on her bed, and that's where she had her hit, and said, I'm going to write a book. And so I thought, if Gabby Bernstein did it, who is just another human being just like me, I can do this too. And so now Gabby Bernstein's I'm a part of that same lit agency. And so, you know, it was like, why not? I mean, really, like, why not? Like, why? Somebody has to do it. That's always been my thing. Like, if somebody's got to do it, why can't it be me?
I love it.
And I mean, what's the worst that's going to happen? Okay, you don't succeed in that one piece, but you learn so much more about yourself in the process anyhow. There's so much learning and failure. So why not?
Yeah. Okay. So you are doing a lot of things.
I'm doing a lot of things.
People aspire to do. So I want to break this down. So with the book, you got really clear that you wanted a New York agent, that you wanted to be with a big publisher. How did you do it? How did you get the agent and get the publishing deal?
So I went on Google, of course, and was like, how do you write a book proposal? Because I didn't know how to write a book proposal. And then my first book proposal sucked, I will say. It was
most
so
first versions
bad.
do. Most first drafts of everything.
Oh my gosh. I was like, what? Now I look back at it and I just laugh. And then I hired somebody to help me. And Stacey Greason, I love this woman. Y'all should use her. And I called her and I just said, hey, look, I have this book proposal. I know it's not what it needs to be in order to be pitched to a really good publisher or a really good agent. Can you help me? And so she said, sure. So I hired her to work beside me for a year, and we completely distilled it down and rewrote the thing.
And what does she do? Does she basically help with book proposals and pitches? Okay, yeah. So she helps you form your proposal so that you could go to an agent. And did you just reach out to an agent in the old-fashioned way? Just
pretty much
send probably in this case an email.
Sat in my
probably
computer,
lots of emails,
hundreds of emails, lots of agents, and I had a lot of them that would say, "Well, you just don't have enough followers. I love your concept. You don't have enough followers." And I remember Stacey saying to me, "Don't get frustrated with us. Don't get frustrated with this because this is a journey, and you never know how you're going to find your agent." And how I actually got my agent was I was at a speaking engagement. And I was up there talking about my story, and somebody in the audience came up and said, hey, look, because I'd mentioned I have this book proposal that I'm pitching out, and she said, would you be interested in me connecting you with somebody that I know? And I said, sure. So she connected me, and voila.
And that's the power of just putting things out there and mention. If there's something you really, really want, just mentioning it to everyone you come in contact with. And it's interesting because the person that heard that that's what you want, they weren't the actual agent, but they knew the agent. So you just never know who can help you.
I think one of the biggest tools that I've learned is we have this thing I need to get to point Z, which is great. I mean, I've always been that way. I need to have my lit agent by December 31st. Perfect. Okay. And I also did the work and did all the tools and had to do all the things to make that happen. But what I didn't do is say, this is how it's going to happen. It's going to be this straight line thing, because it never is. And so, and not only that, but then when we have this expectation of it needs to be this way, and we get frustrated along the way, that's when we get really frustrated with ourselves. But what we do in that situation then is we completely forget about the fact that this is a beautiful journey. Creating a business is amazing, and it's a beautiful journey.
And it's a privilege to be able to.
It's a privilege. And so just being able to sit there and say, okay, this is what I want. I just don't exactly know how it's going to happen.
And if you're
opening yourself up to it.
If you're too attached to how the journey should look, then you don't have enough flexibility to see the unique ways that it could come together as it did for you. Hey, super quick, if this episode is inspiring you, don't forget to subscribe to the podcast. I release new episodes every week, same time, same place. And in case you missed it, I'm currently booking clients for Confidently on Camera, a one-on-one coaching program with me, empowering you to plan, present, produce, promote, and publish your first social media video series to ultimately increase your influence and income online. If you're interested in learning more, apply for a free consultation at confidentlyoncamera.com to see if working together is a good fit. So then ultimately you got the good feedback from the agent. What was the feedback you got from the agent and the publisher that ultimately wanted, the reason why they wanted to work with you?
So it was funny because Claudia Cross is my agent from Folio Literary Agency, and she actually, we had talked about that. She said she was kind of surprised that it wasn't picked up right away, that my book wasn't picked up, that the proposal. And I kept saying, you know what, it's okay, it'll happen when it's meant to happen. And fast forward into the fall, and I get this phone call, and Harper Horizon opened up this new division called Harper opened up this new division called Harper Horizon, and they were taking on 5 new projects, and they loved it, and they said, we want to pick up your project and work with you on this. And meeting that team, I sat down and met that team, and I was like, oh yeah, this is why it didn't get picked up right away, because it's such a cool team. And then when I walked into the publishing house and I saw Kendra Hall's book up there, I don't know if you guys know Kendra Hall, but she wrote Stories That Stick. And I love this woman. She's hilarious. When I saw her book up there and I said, oh my gosh, did you guys actually publish Stories That Stick? I didn't even realize that. And she said, actually, I was the senior editor, and now I'm the senior editor for your book. And I was like, rad, this keeps getting more and more fun, right? And so just like allowing yourself to flow in that is what's key. So you just never know. That's where we get to actually have all these like magical moments. Right?
Yeah, and congrats. How
Thanks.
Exciting.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about the TED Talk now, because that's another thing a lot of people would love to have. So how did that come about?
That came about because, how did that exactly come about? Isn't that funny? That came about because I met with somebody who said, hey, let's have coffee. It's all the networking stuff. I meet a lot of people, and I'm not afraid to talk to people. And so we met for coffee, and then we started talking about my story, and he had just finished a TED Talk, and he said, hey, I need to hook you up with this person so that you can perhaps do a TED Talk in Manhattan Beach. And so he did.
You got connected to
I got
one
connected
of the
to
organizers.
the organizer,
yeah.
and then Kate Bergen, and then Kate. And I worked and got to literally, again, back to that heartbeat of what would you like to do a TED Talk on? I said, I don't know, nature, this. I could do a TED Talk on a lot of stuff. And then we ended up pulling it all the way back and literally like stripping back the layers into how did I truly get to where I am through all of this past pain? And it was through the power of forgiveness. And she asked me, well, what's your definition of forgive? And I told her like how I view forgiveness and how I forgive. And then we looked it up in the dictionary, and it was exactly the opposite of Webster's. And so I was like, well, okay, we need to change the definition of forgive. And so
what is your definition of forgive?
So my definition of forgive is it's not about pardoning the person or forgetting that this actually happened. Like in the Webster's dictionary, they talk about how it's about forgetting that it happened. And in order to get to that place to forgiveness. And my definition is not that at all. It's about literally holding the person accountable, handing back the pain, but not pardoning. Like, I'm not going to pardon you for what you did or forget that you did this. And so
it's just releasing the pain that you're holding.
That you're holding.
That's beautiful.
And literally handing it back to them. Yeah, so that's what my TED Talk's about.
So you had a connection that was made to get you the book deal, connection that was made to get you the TED Talk. Was it a connection that was made to get you the documentary?
Well, actually, that was you. So thank you.
What? Are you kidding me?
I'm actually not kidding.
How am I just finding this out now? And please
because
explain.
this is the perfect place to actually share it, don't you think?
That's awesome. Okay.
She's like, wait, what?
Oh my gosh, I love it.
So it's actually really interesting. I never shared this with you. So
well, I'm so excited that I'm hearing now. And thrilled to hear that that's what happened. Because just real quick side note, that's one of the things that I love about what I do is just the connections that are made and how I can be a part of women's stories and vice versa. So okay, let's hear the story. Yes, let's hear it.
So I didn't realize Laura Van Zee Taylor, she actually directed I Am Maris. It's out on Netflix right now. And she had just she was finishing up her last film, I Am Maris at the time. And she was following my journey through Facebook. We actually, believe it or not, she's a Madison grad. She had her master's. She finished her master's at Madison as well. And we had crossed paths many times in life. When I lived in Northern California, I had met her there. Our kids were the same age. And I love this woman. Like, we became friends, but then we lost touch. So when I moved to Southern California and was going through this whole thing, she was watching it like through Facebook and through social media. And she was like, wow, I can't believe that all that she's going through. And then when she was finishing up her film, somebody said to her, hey, you need to get your next subject. What's your next subject for your film? And she's like, I don't know. But, Sarah's pretty interesting, but I don't know how she would do on film. And so then, right? So, and she also was, she didn't know that last part of my story yet. So that I hadn't gone public yet with my my sexual assault, my rape at 17. And so then I had put that out there right before I met you, right? And so she read that and she's like, wow, this is getting more fascinating. And then she literally was like, I don't know how she'd do on film. And then the day that that interview released, she watched it on Facebook, and she was watching it on Facebook at the time. And she called me and she said, that was the last piece that I actually needed to see. And will you be my next subject for this documentary? And
wow,
so it was through that. It was literally
so cool.
through her watching this. And she said, that's it. Like, I'm done. I want you. And so we went through this whole, like, you know, figuring out the whole thing. Because doing a documentary you're literally putting yourself out there. And it's a lot of work, and it's exhausting, and it's like just emotionally you are just, you know, throwing yourself out to the world and exposing so much of who you are in a beautiful way.
Yeah, tell me a little bit about the experience of filming a documentary.
Gosh, it's one of the biggest, for me, it's one of the biggest gifts that I could actually leave when I leave this planet. Like, when I leave this earth, I know that I have done everything that I really was
you put it
here
all
to
out
do,
there,
right?
Yeah.
Like, here to do, right? And it's exhausting. We filmed back in my hometown of Black Earth already. My family's already been interviewed. We did all of that filming. We then, she came to Southern California a year ago, and we filmed here. So me, you know, sunrise paddle on the Pacific Ocean, and did all of that. And David was interviewed, my ex-husband, so that was really cool. My kids, and then just this last Thanksgiving, and it just how the stars aligned on this was just, that was beautiful. They had one spot left, one cabin left down at the bottom of the Grand Canyon. They said, if you guys want it, you can have it to film. And then also, people just don't get permits to film in the Grand Canyon. And I walked up and handed my permit application to the right person and said, this is what this film is about. It's about, you know, inspiring others to be able to walk through their journey. And the film is actually titled Walk Through This. And to be able to heal from their traumas, and to be able to, you know, look at life through a different lens, and to feel inspired and empowered to do what they need to do to really, you know, live the life of their choice. And they said, sure, this sounds great. Like, we love what you're doing. You guys can have a permit. So 10 women hiked down to the bottom of the Grand Canyon this last Thanksgiving. And while we were down there happened to be a state of emergency. They had 2 feet of snow at the top while we were down there. It actually snowed at the bottom of the Grand Canyon while we were there. That rarely happens. And it just happened to be 6 years to the day that I found out.
Wow. Mm-hmm. Well, I can't wait to watch it. That
Yeah.
sounds like an incredible, incredible way to bring your story to life. Wow.
It's so exciting. Right now, where we're at in the process is we're still looking for funders, because we're back into, when you do a documentary, you fund, you film, you fund, you film. So we're literally like in post-production right now, but we're looking for those people that want to be a part of this and help fund it, to finish off this beautiful piece, and then put it out to the world. I've got some pretty big things that I want to do, you know, between the book and the film, and the vision that I have of really like taking it around the world, and having other women be able to tell their stories, and to be inspired, and to show that, like, you know, I'm human, you're human, we're all Gabby Bernstein, human. Like, she's got her story, and all of our stories, believe it or not, are all connected.
Mm-hmm. So what you just said makes me think of how a lot of times as an entrepreneur, it's a balance between our long-term goals and our short-term goals. So our long-term goals obviously are a lot of times those big, lofty visions that we have that take time to come into fruition and to see the fruits of that labor. And then there are the short-term goals, and a lot of times the things that we need to do to sustain the longer ones. So obviously we just talked about the big and sexy ones that you have coming into fruition after years of work. But in the meantime, you have these short-term things where you've got coaching, you've got retreats, and that obviously has you living out your purpose today. And it also gives you a monetization factor.
Right.
So
well, you need that.
Right. So can you talk to that side of things? Because I think a lot of times I can speak from experience. I'll be, listening or watching an interview, and it's like, okay, but how do you make this all work? Like, how do you pay your bills,
Yeah, well, so I do one-on-one coaching with people, obviously. That's one of the things that I do. And I love doing one-on-one coaching. And I also run retreats in the Grand Canyon. So my retreats, the way that I run them, they're 8 weeks long. So we have Zoom calls prior to, and we have Zoom calls post. And then it's usually between a 5 and a 6 day actual retreat into the Grand Canyon that we do this. So that's where a lot of my monetization comes from right now. I also, it's pretty cool because on the flip side of that, I also do other like trips and things that I run around Southern California. So I just did a divorced women's retreat that we did at the base of Mount Baldy. That was really fun. But I create programs that I know that are going to serve, and I do programs that I know people actually, I feel that they're ready for, that they need right now, that the world needs. So that's a lot of what I do. When the book launches, I'm going to be doing a monthly membership, which will allow me to help more of the vast of people, because that's my other thing. Like for a lot of people, it's, I get a lot of the whole, well, what if I can't climb into the Grand Canyon? What if I'm not physically able to? And so I also was thinking about that whole piece of it. And yeah, I get it. So being able to have people into monthly membership where then they can access nature, wherever they're at, and also bringing in the right people that help people through their own healing journey. And me being able to be that coach on this end of, here is how I actually did it, and here are the tools that you use in order to do it yourself.
Yeah,
so.
Everything you do obviously follows your same mission of helping people heal, sharing your story, but it's really nice to have those programs that you can monetize and offer in the short term as you're working towards your larger goals as well. So for anyone who does want to maybe do a service-based business where you can get that cash flow coming in immediately while working towards your purpose, any advice for them on how do you organize a coaching and retreat business?
So really, you're exactly right. Like, you have to have the tiers, right? And so one of the tiers that I didn't even mention was, I have online programs that you go in and you just buy them off my website. I'm creating one that I have on there right now is all about living outside your comfort zone. And I went on the trail last August and filmed while I was on the trail 7 Steps to Happiness. So I'm in the process right now of working on that one so that I can put it into my website, and then people can just go in and they just download it, they purchase it. It's a good cash flow, but it also helps people along the way. Like, right? They're awesome programs, I have to say. Like, they're filmed outside, so you get to see like all the mountains in the background. So it's like you're there, but you're not there. Anyhow, and then but really, it's about having the tiers laid out, the one-on-one coaching, and then I have putting the retreats in there, and also making sure that when you're charging people, that you're charging enough that it's for your time. And it's for all the time that goes beyond that, because you don't want to wear yourself out. Like, that's the one thing that I've found with people is that they get burned out. And I run my business how I lead my life, right? And I make sure that my kids always have to come first. So I make sure that I have my time put into my work day so that they come first. And then everything else falls around that. Because, I'm running a business, but I'm also a single mom. And so, and really when you're laying it out, like I have my big white sheet of paper right on the wall of, this is what it's going to look like for me in 2020. I have my every month goal. What is it during that month that I'm actually working towards that I need to complete? And then by the end of the year, how much do I want to make? Literally, you guys, this is not me, okay? This is all stuff that I had to learn along the way through Google and asking the questions and joining the masterminds. That's the other thing, is I have a coach. Like, I cannot do this work without having a coach and having a mastermind full of really powerful women that also guide me along the way. Like, have you thought about it this way? Asking me the questions. Because, I think a lot of women, I was definitely one of them. And I still, to this day, still have to go back and remind myself of my own worth. When you're coming out of a situation, for me, that was so trauma-filled, my self-worth was like, it was bad. It was at the lowest point. And so I would give anything away, right? Because I love the work that I was doing, but it was like, here, just, sure, I'll coach you through this. Let's go walk on the beach. Don't worry about it, right? it doesn't work that way anymore, because I then had to build myself back up into this. Sarah, this is your worth. This is what you can do. And if you're not getting paid, you also can't give. If you can't receive, you can't give.
And it's an exchange of value.
It's just exactly.
I'm giving you value, helping you on your journey, and then there's a monetary exchange that happens with that.
It's energy. Like it's mindset. Literally, right? It's just money is energy. And so you have to be able to receive that in order to also give bigger, larger, in a more powerful way. It's just the way it is. And that was a big lesson for me.
Yeah.
That was a hard barrier for me to get over.
Yeah, beautiful. So a couple things that you mentioned that I want to break down.
Yes.
One is that it sounds like there was a natural progression. You didn't just have all these offerings overnight. You started with one-on-one coaching.
I started with one-on-one coaching.
You had that going well. Then you probably added on, it sounds like, retreats.
So I did one-on-one coaching, and I also did my very first retreat. And oh my gosh, I won't even tell you how much I made, because it was not much. It was like, this, you guys just like literally come on, because I needed to get the word out there, and I needed to try it. I needed to it was my education. I needed to see what it would be like. And it was amazing. And so that's when I went after that first retreat. Yup, this is what I learned, and this is how I'm going to shift it. This is how I'm going to pay. This is what I'm going to pay or charge next time. And literally it was like a buildup, right? Of like, okay, now we're here. Now we're here. Now we're here.
One step at a time.
And they always shift. I didn't used to bring in other experts. I didn't used to bring in other instructors. Now I bring in Jenna Reese. She's this amazing breathwork instructor. So we do breathwork at the bottom of the Grand Canyon. Brittany Lynn, she does all the meditations. I can't do everything. Like I can't hold space and coach and do everything at the same time. It doesn't work. I need to have that other person too. And so I have Jenna Heim. She's sometimes my right-hand woman to help with the guiding piece. And I built out something, what I would want it to look like if I was them, when I was going through my own stuff. But the retreats aren't just for people that are healing. It's for people that are, like looking to shift their life or looking to...
a transformation.
I have people that are going this in January that are like, okay, like I have been in this business forever, and now I want to get to the heartbeat of who I am so I can actually go 2020 and go into a completely different line of work. And so it's literally like when clients come in, it's not just about like, hey, I'm going through a divorce, or it's not that at all. It's all different kinds of things.
Yeah, and then the other thing I wanted to break down that you touched on was reverse engineering. So you mentioned you looked at your 2020, started with how much do you want to make, and looked at all your offerings for the year, and then broke down what you needed to do month to month to fulfill that. So it sounds like that's very strategic for you to reverse engineer what
I'm
your
a reverse engineer, and it's reverse engineer, yes.
Yeah.
And then, but then when I put the big piece of paper up on the board and I showed it to my 18-year-old son, who's a senior in high school right now, he was like, "Whoa!" I said, "Yeah, dude, this is you remember me? Like I was the one that was like putting on kickball tournaments. It's no different. It's just larger in a different way." Like he was like, "Whoa, awesome. This is really cool, right?" Like we get to teach other people how to do it too. And there's no right or wrong way. Like that's the thing. There's no right or wrong way.
You make it your own.
You make it your own. And that's the beautiful thing about business.
Awesome. Well, where can people keep up with you?
I know, right? All over. On Instagram, I am Sara Schulting-Kranz. On my Facebook, it's Sara Schulting-Kranz is my personal. Otherwise, I also do Live Boldly as my business. I'm not as much of a Twitter person, sorry.
That's so okay. Really, Instagram and Facebook keeps us like busy enough.
That's my social media platform. LinkedIn, Sara Schulting-Kranz, and then also my website also is saraschultingkranz.com.
Sara Schulting-Kranz. Find her everywhere.
Find me everywhere.
Awesome.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your story and all the insight. And congratulations. I am so happy for you. Amazing how just in a couple of years, a lot has really popped for you.
I know.
Very
well,
cool.
Thank you for this last interview, because after Laura watched it, she was like, "Hey, let's do a documentary." Okay.
I love it. And it goes to show we never know how we're making a little positive impact here and how it has really, really big payoff.
You never know.
So,
you never know. Eyes open. Yeah.
Sara, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Well, that's it for today's show. If you're loving this podcast, don't forget to subscribe so we can meet again next week, same time, same place. Thank you so much for listening and have an amazing week.